the thought that I would keep coming back, that it would eventually lead to me wanting to camp out on the square just to protest the appalling nature of the austerity budget being passed inside in an emergency session, or no, I'm sorry, extraordinary session, when there's nothing extraordinary about passing a budget unless you know it's so reprehensible that you have to hide it from the public eyes. And so, I don't know, just the whole thing of the occupation, for myself, it was cathartic and amazing to come back every night I could and every day I could. But at the same point, I'm 28, I was still 28 then, but it was a little bittersweet because 21-year-old me, when I was a student at the UW, would have been sleeping inside, and I would have been right there every day, every night with everyone else, but I just knew I couldn't. So the notion that everyone was there, not for themselves, but for someone else, whether it was the person who was in your family and lived out of state, or for the, maybe you have an elderly grandmother who was gonna get kicked off of Badger Care. People kept coming for other people. And there was like an unspoken agreement that as long as you kept coming back, you knew there'd be other people who were coming back there with you, fighting the same fight. And you knew as long as you kept showing up, someone would be here every day. And that's why the people who held down the fort have continued to hold down the fort, and some of whom I've come to become good friends with, people I never knew, who I now talk to on a daily basis, which I never thought was even feasibly possible, not living in the dorms in college.
How do you move forward? Recall election or beyond?
As far as the recall, me personally, I've taken on a more active role through social networking with trying to get the message out there. This whole deal basically reignited my passion for writing, and so I've decided as long as I could keep people motivated, if people read what I'm writing on Facebook, or if I start blogging, which I did, that maybe I can get one person a day to take notice, as long as we keep spreading the truth, facts, because everything that Walker and his cronies have kept passing along every day, it's just perpetuated lies, perpetuated the same things over and over again. I think as long as we just keep getting the message out there, we know it's annoying the hell out of a lot of people, but as long as, people like you, Arthur, and Jenna Pope, and CJ and Damon, and the thousands and thousands of people who came together and realized we mobilized an army of grassroots volunteers. As long as we don't give up the fight and realize that even if we lose this recall, we're not going to give up the fight. I mean, our state, that's not what it's about. We never rolled over and died. They thought they could use us as a guinea pig experiment to push, this extremist social agenda and economic agenda across the country. The thing was, after what happened in 2010, they thought we were going to roll over. I mean, if Russ Feingold can get voted out of office for a Senator Ron Johnson, who, the guy ran on, I'm not Barack Obama, I owned a business that I inherited. They thought they could do it to us, they could do it to anyone. And we proved they picked the wrong state to mess with. They picked us first, and we continue to lead the way. I think as long as people agree that this mobilization we've essentially put together, we're all in it together, and it's spreading. It's spreading by the day. The recall signatures show that. I honestly still believe as long as we can get a candidate who's willing to stand up and fight, someone who was in the trenches with everyone else, at the protests, doing the rallies, collecting signatures, as long as we can get a candidate like that, I think we'll win. And even if we don't, we'll know we've won that small portion of the battle. Get the positive message out there. Let people know that we're not going to stand for this, and just because it's going to drag on, we're still here. It's been over a year now, and people still keep coming every day. We can have rallies at the drop of a hat and get 500 to 1,000 people there. It's not ending anytime soon. And it all comes back here to February and March. And I mean, it's an uprising. It's a people's movement, maybe the likes of which have not been seen in the US in over a century. And so, I mean, I remain optimistic that 1 year from now, we can start celebrating this week of anniversaries in a light, knowing we've got a new governor in office. our state's never going to go back to that, because if we can get a Democrat governor and potentially flip the Senate or the Assembly, I think you'll see some of the Republicans who used to be open-minded and would vote however their conscience actually told them to vote, and not what Scott Fitzgerald or Scott Walker or Alec tells them how to vote, that our state can actually get back to being a beacon of democracy. Like John Nichols always says, I believe Louis Brandeis said, you know, we were essentially like a petri dish of democracy. You know, Bob LaFollette, Gaylord Nelson, Russ Feingold, Dave Obey. That's what we need to get back to. And I think as long as we commit that we never forget what went down in the opening weeks of February last year, and you still continue to see it, we just can't ever let ourselves get apathetic again. And I'm equally responsible for that. I always just felt, you know, you can get out and vote and talk to people. You can't just sit there and bitch about it. You actually have to live democracy. And that's what this movement has inspired a lot of people to not just, you know, talk about their rights, but actually act upon them and do everything within our power to uphold and ensure that our elected officials hold themselves to that same standard.
Anything else you want to include?
I would just say, you know, the fight's going to keep raging. I'm not going anywhere. I know you're not going anywhere. I know there's thousands of other people who they're in it to win it, and everyone's changed. And, you know, February 17 changed my whole life. There's no taking that back. I'm not the same as I was, and I'm happy about that. So I guess I would just say solidarity and forward.